G'day family, friends and followers. Welcome to another garden construction video from Sweeney's Creek Farm. As people know, we're in the middle of spring at the moment, heading into summer, and a little look around the property is indicating that and showing us that it's drying out so much already. We have fairly extreme and fairly dry, hot summers here. It's certainly a challenge for us. We're embarking on a project now to mitigate that heat and to actually allow us to grow these nice tomatoes in our raised garden beds. Link to the video previously of constructing our raised garden beds. We have two styles, one with the corrugated iron sides for the root vegetables, and then these lower style ones just with the red gum sleepers, and these are for our tomato crop. We didn't want these up too high because as the tomato plant grows, we didn't want to be using ladders to actually harvest the crop, so these are a little bit lower to the ground. But of course, one of the issues here is we're very exposed out here in the middle of the old cow paddock. There's very little shade and shelter for them, so we needed to put up some shade cloth over the top of these tomato plants to give them a chance so that they don't dry out. We wanted to put a hoop style cover over the garden beds, so we put the call out onto Facebook Marketplace, finding some people that had some old trampolines that they no longer wanted. And we're able to get a few. We're still searching for more, and we'll continue to collect those because they're going to be a great resource for us. And again, in the interest of reuse, recycle, repurpose here, we're going to be using these to make our cover that the shade cloth is going to sit on over the garden beds. This will have a dual benefit. In the winter, we'll be able to replace the shade cloth with greenhouse plastic and actually then up with a high tunnel type arrangement here and continue to grow through our winter. This will give us year-round growing, which is something we've always wanted to do and an aim we have for the property here. So how are we going to do this? Half of a trampoline frame. If you imagine the rest of these sections going around, you can see a couple over here laying on the ground ready to go. So half of a frame is basically half a circle. We're going to be securing each of those connection points with a Tek screw to make sure they're nice and secure, and then on the ends to raise them up a little bit because the height of this arc is a little bit low for my head, being 6'2". I'm going to do a little bit of metal work to actually get some of the trampoline legs into the end, which will raise it up another 60 centimetres or 2 feet off the ground, which will give us enough height at the top. So these will go over the garden beds and then that will hold up the shade cloth. Between the hoops we have the attachments here for the trampoline legs, so we're going to be using the legs there to actually create the sidebars, which will then secure them and keep them separated and keep them supported. We have some clamps that will join the two sections here in the middle. So everything in this construction is going to be completely recycled from old trampolines that people were throwing away, which we think is fantastic. Another part of the construction also using completely recycled materials is the use of this little bit of Rio bar. So to stop the legs from actually walking out, we need to secure them down. So we're going to hammer in a piece of Rio down to a depth that's going to be enough to support. The legs will then go over. You can imagine that just being cut off there. And then we'll put a bracket over there to hold it in. So it will have reinforcement down into the ground and a bracket there attaching it, and then the hoop going around to the same thing on the other side. Then it will have the cross braces that way. Should be fairly stable and fairly strong, we hope. First thing we need to do is to get the pieces of Rio cut off to the right size. I'm just going to use the large angle grinder. We'll make short work of these. You might see in the background how much it's starting to dry out here. We're already heading into the dry season. So anytime that you're using an angle grinder in Australia in dry conditions, make sure you've got some water with you because you just never know when that spark is going to kick off a little fire. And grass fires are a common hazard here in Australia, and we need to be always mindful of what we're doing in our environment to make sure we're not setting off fires. So with that in mind, time to grind. One of the issues reusing and recycling things is, of course, it's always got to be modified at some times. You can see here, this is a round and this is not round, and they will not go in, and that's the leg formation that we want. So we needed to find a way to get that into there, and the solution is cut it off a little bit because it doesn't need to be that long, and then to cut a split in both ends so that it allows it to actually shrink in. We also use the hammer to flatten it out a little bit. And here's one I prepared earlier, and you can see the difference. So we've cut a little piece off. We've also cut a groove in there which will allow that to compress in as it goes into the other shape. We've also flattened it out a little bit with the mash hammer. So all things willing, that will now and that is how you make a square peg go into a round hole. So there you can see we've got our Rio bar supporting, we've got the leg in, we've got the first part of the arch. We'll now start putting them in. We'll tech screw them together just to hold them in place, give them a bit of strength, and that will then transition around to here, and that will be our first hoop, and the height is going to be up around about there, which will be just nice for me. The tech screws are going on the side. If we put them on the top, they're going to be a catching point there for the shade cloth, and also later on for the plastic. So we want the top to be as smooth as possible, very much so for the plastic, to allow it to go over and not create a hot spot there that will result in a tear or a hole. Just to give it a bit of protection from side to side movement of any wind coming in there, we put some bracing on here. So we've got a right angle join here, using one of the trampoline connectors with a bit of metal. So we've bent it round with my excellent steel working skills, and got it down here where we've screwed it onto the garden bed. That has reduced all the movement this way. We just need to brace it now to actually stop it from moving north to south. Well, that's been a full day's work out here. Stage one is pretty well complete. We've got the bracing in, we've got the hoops over, we've extended the beds here. We've ended up with a covered grow area here, 3.6 wide by 7 long, or roughly 11-ish feet by 22 feet. It's all going to be covered up in shade cloth to provide some protection from the sun for our tomatoes. We think we've got enough garden beds here for the tomatoes. We're not sure, but we'll see how we go, because you can never have enough tomatoes.
Can so.
No, you can't. Stage 2, which will be the next video, will involve the same bracing that we've got on the top here. We'll put one on the side and one on the side here just to give it that extra bracing and also to hold the shade cloth. The shade cloth won't go all the way down to the ground, so it'll be open on the sides, which will allow the airflow to come through. It's just to provide relief from the sun. So we just have to get those struts we've got up there replicated on the side, and the side it will also help to brace it and hold it steady. Thanks for coming and watching the video. We're really pleased with this. The net cost of this is basically zero. Donated or abandoned trampoline frames. The red gum has come from the cattle guards that we pulled down, which we use for the raised garden beds here. We've just about used every usable piece of red gum there. The rest of it's going to be chopped up for next year's firewood, which will be handy as well. Thanks for coming, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to hit that like button to support the channel. If you're enjoying the content, please join the family and hit that subscribe button as well. Thanks for coming, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.